Hello and welcome back to my channel. In this video, we will continue with our revision. In the last video, we focused on the island of Montserrat and said that it is an overseas territory of the UK. As such, the UK had the responsibility of hosting many of the refugees during the eruption of the Soufriere Hills volcano. The UK also currently provides aid to assist the country with its annual budget. The UK also has close ties to other Caribbean territories, since many Caribbean countries were once colonies of Britain. Historically, agriculture was developed to supply Britain with tropical produce. After these countries gained independence, the UK became the main export market for Caribbean agricultural goods. For many years, the Caribbean benefited from preferential treatment based on the common agricultural policy of the EU, which the UK was a part of. For example, Caribbean rice could be exported duty-free to Europe as long as it was milled in EU overseas territories such as Montserrat and Curacao. Caribbean rice now have unlimited duty-free access to Europe. However, since the duties on the rice from other countries have been cut, there is greater competition for Caribbean producers. Caribbean banana once had priority on the British market, though after 1992, the British market was no longer protected for Caribbean banana. A fixed amount of Caribbean rum could once be exported to Europe duty-free, but since 2003, this special benefit no longer exists, since now duties on rum has been lowered for all countries. Another benefit was the Caribbean sugar exporters was that Caribbean sugar exporters were once paid the same guaranteed prices as European sugar producers for their exports to Europe. In some years, this was more than 3 times the world price. Unfortunately, this guaranteed price for sugar was removed by the EU in 2010. Because of the changes to sugar export, only 4 Caribbean countries are still exporting sugar. These are Belize, Barbados, Jamaica, and Guyana. With no guaranteed sugar prices, these countries have had to restructure to cut costs. Europe has made special grants to Caribbean sugar and banana producing countries to help them in the restructuring process. Guyana is now the largest producer of sugar in CARICOM. The government-owned industry, Gaisuco, has a number of estates located along the coast, where it also benefits from closeness to labor, local market, roads, canals, as well as ports. Guyana's sugar industry, however, struggles to keep going. In some years, the production cost is much higher than the selling price on the world market. The UK is also important to the Caribbean because a large portion of the Caribbean diaspora lives there. The term diaspora refers to a large group of people who share a cultural and regional origin but are living away from their traditional homeland. Many persons from the Caribbean have migrated to the UK in search of jobs and other opportunities, such as the chance to complete their education. This type of migration is referred to as voluntary migration and is different from the type of migration we spoke about in the last video regarding the citizens of Montserrat. Many persons from the Caribbean who live in the UK take regular visits to their home country. When they do so, they are recognized as tourists. They, along with other nationals from the UK, form a significant part of the Caribbean tourist market. These tourists visit the Caribbean to enjoy our culture and history, which is intertwined with theirs. They also come to enjoy our natural features such as our caves, rivers, and beaches. Some of these natural features, like coral reefs and mangroves, are unique to the tropics and are therefore particularly fascinating to those who live in temperate climates. One of the main reasons many visitors from the UK and other temperate countries are attracted to the Caribbean is because of our tropical climate. This is especially attractive during the winter months of the Northern Hemisphere when the UK is very cold and wet. Let's briefly examine the climate graphs of the UK and Jamaica. While the UK has a cool temperate marine climate, Jamaica, like most other Caribbean countries, has a tropical marine climate. The graph on the left shows that the temperature of the UK is highest in the summer, but even then, it is still less than 20 degrees. In winter months, temperature falls to about 4 degrees, and sometimes it's even lower. The line graph for Jamaica is much gentler than that of the UK, which indicates that the temperatures do not change or vary much throughout the year. Like the UK, the warmest period is in the summer. The slightly colder period in the winter months is due largely to cold fronts which normally occur in the Northern Caribbean at this time of the year. Rainfall in the UK is well distributed throughout the year, but the total annual rainfall is much lower than that of Jamaica. Notice that the month with the highest rainfall is December. The distribution of rainfall in Jamaica is different. We can clearly see a wetter and a drier season. Unlike the UK, the wetter season occurs during the summer months. During this time of the year, the ITCZ is usually in the Caribbean, and oftentimes easterly waves and hurricanes also bring a lot of rainfall. Both the Caribbean as well as the UK are now experiencing changes to their climate due to global warming. Global warming may be defined as the gradual increase in the Earth's temperature, generally due to enhanced greenhouse effect. Most of the territories of the Caribbean are islands, and those that are not, such as Belize and Guyana, have a significant amount of their development along the coast. Likewise, the UK is a small group of islands. This means that both places are under the threat of sea level rise as a result of global warming. Sea level rise increases the risk of coastal flooding and coastal erosion. In the Caribbean, where tourism is mainly carried out along the coast, sea level rise is even more impactful. Tourism is the most important industry for most Caribbean territories, and most hotels are built along the coast, where visitors can benefit from attractions such as beaches, mangroves, and coral reefs. Rising sea levels, as well as other impacts of global warming, can have damaging impacts on all of these natural attractions. Corals grow best in shallow water with the right amount of salt. Rising sea level can disturb both of these conditions. Additionally, rising temperatures can result in coral bleaching. Mangroves flourish in intertidal zone, with the sea coming further inland, and human structures already existing along the coast. The space for mangroves to grow is now decreasing. Sea level rise, as well as long periods of drought, also increases the level of salinity that these plants are exposed to. Sea level rise has also begun to erode many beaches in the Caribbean. Coral reefs, mangroves, and beaches are not just tourist attractions, but are also agents of protection. However, when they are removed, man-made structures such as hotels, roads, and private homes are more exposed to coastal flooding. In the UK, winter rains increase the risk of flooding in settlements built along floodplains. As a result of climate change, the risk of flooding is even greater. In the Caribbean, hurricanes and other storms occur mainly in the summer when the sea is exposed to higher temperatures. Hurricanes increase the risk of storm surge and flooding in coastal areas, as well as landslides in hilly areas. With global warming, the intensity of these storms is even greater, and these storms are even more unpredictable. Droughts also impact the Caribbean as well as the UK. When droughts occur, it puts water supply at risk. This in turn impacts agriculture, affecting both crops as well as livestock. Drought also negatively impacts households as well as industries. During periods of drought, wildfires are common. Fire is one of the leading causes of forest degradation in Jamaica. As the drought periods get longer due to global warming, the risk of wildfires increase, and in turn the risk of forest degradation and wildlife destruction also increase. When wildfire occur near agricultural land, it can easily destroy agricultural crops and kill livestock as well. This is true of the Caribbean as well as the UK. The Caribbean was not the only place where the UK exercised its colonial powers. It also had colonies in other places such as Africa as well as Asia. One Asian country which was once a colony of the UK is Singapore, which is located in Southeast Asia. Singapore formally became a British colony in 1824 and remained in British hands until 1963. Between 1963 to 1965, Singapore was part of Malaysia. Singapore had a rough start after its independence, but today it is one of the most prosperous countries in the world. Though many other factors have contributed to its success, British influence has also helped to make Singapore what it is today. For example, English is one of Singapore's 4 official languages and has greatly helped the country in its trading. Singapore is the United Kingdom's largest trading partner in Southeast Asia, with 2/3 of UK exports to this region flowing into Singapore. There are also more than 4,000 British companies in Singapore today. The UK also cooperates with Singapore on a wide range of international issues. The UK was the birthplace of industrialization, which has contributed much to its prosperity. Similarly, industrialization has also contributed to the prosperity of Singapore. Manufacturing contributes between 20% to 25% of the country's annual GDP. Let's talk some more about manufacturing. Manufacturing is the secondary economic activity in which raw materials are processed and transformed into a finished product. This adds value to the product and therefore increase profit. As such, a country which is dominated by manufacturing usually does better than one which is dominated by primary industries. With a similar history as the Caribbean and its current state of economic prosperity, Singapore has been a type of role model for Caribbean countries. For a manufacturing industry to be successful, there are certain factors which must be present. Let's take the food processing industry, for example. One factor necessary for its success is the availability of raw materials. In the Caribbean, raw materials for food processing is made available through the agricultural industry as well as through imports. In land-scarce Singapore, a much larger percentage of its raw material is obtained from food imports from abroad. Due to the fact that the country has a well-diversified supply chain, it has no shortage of raw materials. To convert raw materials, energy is needed to drive the machinery. Most countries in CARICOM have to import all of the fuel that they use. One exception to this is Trinidad and Tobago, which has its own source of fuel. As such, the country has the most successful manufacturing sector in CARICOM. Like most CARICOM countries, Singapore also has to import its fuel. However, though the country is an importer of oil and natural gas, it is also a producer of refined oil and natural gas, which means that it has no shortage of energy. Even when the raw materials and the energy to convert them are available, manual labor is also needed to carry out the job. For both places, labor is supplied by locals who are both classified as skilled and unskilled. Labor is, however, not voluntary, and so money is needed to pay wages. Money is also needed for purchase of raw materials as well as for the purchase of technology. Thus, capital is necessary for the success of the industry. The source of capital often depends on the scale of operation. Small-scale food processing industries are often funded by personal savings or from loans from the bank, while large-scale companies often obtain money through foreign investment. This is true of both Singapore as well as CARICOM. The advantage that Singapore has is the fact that it has a very good reputation and is well connected. As such, many countries are willing to invest in the country. Finally, we cannot have a successful industry without proper governance. The government is responsible for creating policies which provide the framework in which industries operate. In CARICOM countries, the government helped to provide training institutions to increase the skill set of workers. They help to protect local food suppliers by imposing high taxes on selected food items. In Singapore, the government plays an even bigger role. They ensure that there are designated industrial zones available for the siting of industries. They help local producers to establish their brand internationally. They have also promoted a climate of innovation so that industries remain competitive, especially since there are no duties on imported items. Okay, at this point, I want you to pause the video and try to answer the following questions. If you are unable to answer, then I encourage you to watch it again and then give it another try. This is where we will stop for today. Thank you for watching, and remember to like, to share, and to subscribe.